One headline can undo 20 years of trust. I'm Marna Roets, CEO of Inscorp Insurance Brokers. Your brand is your most fragile asset. Product recalls, social storms, cyber breaches, leadership missteps. You can't insure reputation, but you can insure the risks. We translate headlines into risk conversations, coordinate insurers into one protection strategy, and help you build a simple crisis plan. Let's map your brand risks together.
Welcome to another day here at Vision 2025. It's a Thursday. It's wet. It's going to rain, but we're still here. So it's wonderful to be here again. And today we're going to have Marna Roets, who's from Inscorp Insurance Brokers, who's going to be talking to us about whether you can insure your brand or not. Now, last week we spoke about this, and I had no idea if you could insure your brand or not. But Marna's going to tell us all about it. But before we start, let's introduce our co-hosts and welcome them. And I'm going to start with Russell. Please, Russell, welcome yourself and introduce yourself.
Morning, David. Morning, audience and co-hosts. Marna, looking forward to your presentation. And it is an interesting subject, Brett, about insuring your brand. So, yeah, my name is Russell John Fagan. My company, OrbSpec, focuses on business development, reputation management, but specifically on sales training. You can go and study to be a doctor at university, accountant. Obviously, Marna, you had to do a lot of studies to be able to get licensed to do insurance. But yet we send a lot of people out into the field to sell, but they aren't trained how to sell. It's not about product supplying that anybody can do. It's about the key elements that make sales a art, focusing on the psychology of sales and closing techniques and such. So, yeah, that's what I do. Thank you, David.
Welcome, Russell. Great to have you here. Thank you. We all need someone to tell us how to and teach us how to do sales. Let's go to Glenn. Morning, Glenn. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Great to be on board again. Always love the show and always get exciting nuggets from this, and looking forward to this. And I really believe that brand is such an important aspect. So definitely you need to ensure that. I'm looking forward to what Marna has to say today. Glenn Jones, Mentors Coaching. I always talk to people and say, I'd like to help you map the way forward. And that's what I do. One of the things I do is map for life coaching. And we have map for pretty much anything. Map for business, map for parenting, map for sport, map for you name it. And so that's what I basically do. So thank you very much. Looking forward to what you have to say, Marna.
Thank you, Glenn. Great to have you here. Well, hello, morning to you. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, David and Marna and the rest of the team. And yes, I'm looking forward to what you are going to tell us, Marna. I don't have a clue what it actually means, but I will learn from this. Yeah, what I do, I'm a life energy coach. I'm actually helping teams to grow and to 10x themselves. You know, sometimes they want to scale, teams want to scale, but they think it's all just about strategy, but it's more about culture. If your team is not healthy, you can't really scale effectively. It will just stress you out. So that's where I help. I help teams to gel together with different tools that I use. And then you are ready to go. And if you start well, you can end better. Wilhelm Lombard, Life Energy Coach.
Thank you, Wilhelm. Great to have you here. You know, we've been meeting on this program every Thursday for the last 2 years. Can you believe that? It's nearly our 2-year anniversary. We started this in 2023. So give yourselves a hand for being here consistently. The whole process of Vision 2025 was actually born to actually give back to the community and to actually learn from experts, learn from people, from their experiences, and to basically learn gems so that we can actually apply them in our own lives and in our businesses. And we've been going for now, well, basically 2 years. It's nearly our anniversary, and but today we really got a really special guest, Marna, who's also been on the program, and Marna is going to introduce us to whether you could actually insure your brand or not. So Marna, welcome to the show. Really great to have you here. And I'm going to hand over the presentation to you, and let's look forward to learning something about whether we can actually insure our brand and why we should actually insure our brand. I think that's the most important thing. Why should we insure our brand? Marna, over to you. Welcome to the show.
Well, good morning, everybody. I would just like to thank David and the team for the opportunity today to present to you the importance of protecting your brand. And I was just thinking about something that's very active in the media at the moment, and that's Prince Andrew and the whole debacle with the Epstein thing that they have going on there. I'm sure he wished he could have protected his brand. So my name is Marna Roets, and I protect the things that protects your business, like your assets and your liability. But today, I would like to discuss something all businesses have in common, and that's your brand. That's your most valuable asset. Then, David, if you can maybe go to slide 2, please. Okay, so to understand what this is all about, we need to understand what is a brand. And I think a lot of people and business owners think your brand stops at your logo and your name. So once you've got your name and you've got your logo, you're set for life. That actually is not that. Your brand is, if you look at the maths about it, it's your brand equals your trust, and it plus your reputation and your ability to be still in business tomorrow. In today's social media, it takes only one mistake. Doesn't have to be a big mistake, one tiny small mistake, and we all know what social media are, and there your business is gone. So your brand is really about the trust that people place in you. It's your promise, consistency, reputation. It's really your most valuable asset you will ever have. Next slide. So if we look at today, what you can do, but I wanted to start to say that there's the ladies will understand this scenario. So they advertise a dress and say one size fits all, and we know, all of us know, that one size never fits all. So we need to understand that in the insurance world as well. There's no one policy to protect your brand, but it's built into different areas of your business. So we look at a whole set of different things. If you can go to the next slide for me, David, please. Okay. I first want to quickly discuss what we can insure. Product failures. I want to look at cyber breaches. I want to look at offensive and harmful advertising, social media failures, social political backlash. And when we look at, and this is why I say one size does not fit all of it. It cannot fit all of it. I can't insure, for instance, project failures because I'm an insurance broker, so I would have personal indemnity cover. So when we look at product failures, there's contamination, faulty products that can trigger recalls. And then we look at cyber breaches. We've got hackers who steal data, hold you ransom. You've got personal information on your files. We've got a single insensitive advert. You might think this is the best advert in the world, but just one person might feel offended, and then it's a national outbreak. Poor leadership, that's one of them. We look at directors and officers. I mean, one person in your organization making one little mistake in his decision making, and there goes your business and your brand with it. Next slide. I thought it best today to look at examples. I'm going to look at Tiger Brands, 3 actually, Tiger Brands and the Clixt and Tresemme debacle. I don't know if you remember that. And if I look at Tiger Brands, I mean, that was, people died. I don't know if you remember, it was the listeriosis crisis they had in 2018. That was such a huge thing in the market. And think of myself, I can't even remember when was the last time I had a slice of bologna. And I remember going to the grocery store at month end normally. I would buy a big bologna and I would cut it in big slices and put mayonnaise on it. I have never, ever ate a slice of bologna after that debacle. So the damage is something that you cannot even put in money. People lost their jobs. Factories were closing. It was years and years and years of litigation afterwards. I think over 200 people died because of that. It just shows you how a trusted brand can become a headline and a scandal overnight. Then I want to look at the Clicks and Tresemme example. Just one advert. And I'm sure the guys who made the decision on that advert was quite proud of the work they've done. But to some people, it was harmful. There was national protest around that. Stores were damaged. There was a huge public outrage about it. And social media escalated to it became so big that it was all that everybody talked about at that time. And it takes years to build back that trust. The key point here is these are two different incidents, but the risk score is the same and the loss of trust is the same. And how do you get that trust back? And then I also want to talk a little bit about the solution, possible solutions. If you go to the next slide, David. Okay. So when we look at that, remember, insurance doesn't prevent a crisis, but it manages the financial and the reputational fallout afterwards. For Tiger Brands type of risk, you would look at contaminated products and recall insurance. You would look at liability. You would look at business interruption insurance. You would look at crisis PR support that normally comes part of your product. And for the Clicks type of one, you would look at your media, multimedia liability. You would look at cyber liability for online content. And also in your cyber liability, they have a PR section of your policy. And once something like this happens, they take over your PR and they manage the risk to keep your risk and the damage of whatever happened to your business or your brand, to minimize that. And that's, I think, a very important thing. Once it happens, you can't undo it, but you can minimize the risk it has on your business. And then our South African insurance companies already offers this, but you need to know how to look for it. It's not called brand liability or brand insurance. It's all built in separate sections of your policy and products available in the market. And then I want to look at a case study from Dis-Chem. We all remember that breach they had, the cyber breach. It's a huge national retailer, but they are still vulnerable. And I think a lot of companies, even our smaller companies, think if we've got an IT person looking after our security on our IT or our service, great. Not always true. If companies like Dis-Chem can get hacked, so can you. If ABSA can get hacked, if FNB can get hacked, so can you. And I mean, if you look at ABSA and Dis-Chem, the size of those companies and the type of people they have who look after the IT and their service and their information on their systems, they are very qualified people. But we must remember that the cyber specialist, crime specialist, I would almost say, is they're always one step ahead. They anticipate your next step. They anticipate if they hack you, this is what you're going to do. So they build stuff into your system. Okay, what are they going to do the moment they know that they've been hacked? They're going to do X, Y, Z. So they're going to put something into the X, Y, Z. So once you do that, something else gets released into your system. So you need to have a safety net to help you with that. And then also, the POPIA obligations kicked in immediately. I mean, Dis-Chem had to notify all their clients on their system that they've been hacked and there was a breach in their system. The regulator gets involved. Compliance and reputation concerns. I was reluctant to swipe my discount card because I don't know if I swipe it there, what else are they going to see about me? What I buy, they have your name, you've got your telephone number, they've got your ID, and what damage can they do to you as an individual? And so you can just see the liability you have as a company towards the larger public outside. And then insurance steps in, like we've got your forensic IT available to you. You've got the legal support, you've got the crisis communication department who will take and regulate your crisis, and you've got systems of recovery, and also it includes your business interruption cover as well. Cyber is not just an IT risk, it's a brand and legal risk, which is very important to remember. And then prepare for what you cannot insure. Next slide. We can't insure everything that's going to happen in your business. You, as the business owner, needs to take some responsibility. So some of the risk requires systems and not policies. And when I say policies, I mean insurance policies. But you need to have a plan in place. You need to have a crisis plan. Your first line of defense needs to be in place. You need to know what to do when something happens. Who does it? You need to know when they need to do it. And I'm talking about staff now. And how communication is flowing. How are you going to communicate a cyber breach, for instance, or a leak of personal information? How are you going to manage that crisis once it happens? If you don't have a plan, you're going to be ruined. Who to speak to internally and who to speak to externally. But the key message is the crisis plan is worthless if it lives in a file and nobody knows about it. It's wonderful to have all these plans. When you apply for liability insurance, at first, one of the questions they're going to ask you is, what plan do you have in place? Do you have a crisis management plan? And what is that plan? People must be trained. And your next big asset you have is the staff that works for you, the people that works for you. It's wonderful to have all these plans in place, but your staff doesn't know what to do. So you need to regularly train your staff. For example, you have an IT crisis plan in place to say, we need to test our vulnerability every now and then, or regularly. I mean, what does regularly mean to a staff member? You need to be specific to say, we need to test vulnerability every 6 months, every quarter, once a year. Be specific. Be specific about who's responsible to arrange that. Is it going to be somebody external? And who is that external person? Is it going to be somebody internal? Who is that person? And the telephone numbers. Very important. Then your communication protocols. Control the narrative. You need to control your audience. You need to control your clients. You need to control the public. You need to know what to do and who is going to be your person who is going to talk to the media. Clear communication prevents mixed messages. I mean, don't be vague. Staff guessing what to say. They need to be trained what to say. Unauthorized statements. You can't just let everybody, the receptionist or the guy who receives the stock, talk to the public to tell them what's going on. You need to be specific. Social media, freelancing. Who does your social media? How much control do you have over that person? What is the agreement with you? What do you allow? You can't just give somebody carte blanche and say, okay, you're doing my social media. I don't want to know anything about my social media. Look at what happened to Flex. Escalating the public backlash. You need to control, you need to have a PR department or somebody who takes that over. And that's where the insurance comes in, because they take over all that regulating of what is going to happen next. Your protocol must cover who may speak to customers, who may speak to the media, what internal communication looks like, how quickly updates must be given, when legal, or PR teams must be looped in. In a crisis, silence or confusion is as damaging as the crisis itself. Vendor, that's another thing. Your subcontractors, your vendors, your brand is in someone else's hands. It's very important. When you make use of subcontractors or vendors, your brand is in that person's hands. Many crises start with external partners. The same happened with Discount. They had an external partner who managed the information on their systems. So you need to be absolutely sure to do your homework when you appoint an external person. I'm talking about installers, I'm talking about IT vendors, I'm talking about marketing agencies, I'm talking about transport subcontractors, I'm talking about maintenance and service providers. If they fail, your brand will bleed. Believe me, if they fail, your brand will bleed. Therefore, vet your vendors thoroughly. Do ITC checks if you have to, but vet them thoroughly. Insure contracts include liability and compliance obligations. Always make sure that they have the same liability cover that you have in your business. Require proof of insurance. It's important not only to ask for proof of insurance, but to do that on a regular basis. I might have an insurance policy in place today, but tomorrow it lapses. Then you're going to bleed. Check their credentials. Ask for references. There's nothing wrong to ask, okay, can you send me a reference? I have had a lot of people who wanted to do marketing on my behalf, and I always ask them, send me the names of the people that you've done marketing before. Nothing wrong with that, because you have to protect yourself, your business, and the people who work for you, and the public. Monitor the performance and ongoing, not just once off. Keep on monitoring it. I employed somebody who did my marketing for about, I think it was almost 2 years. And then one day I just realized, I don't see any ads anymore. Let me just quickly go and have a look. And also, then I started looking at the type of ads that we're sending out there. It's not closely what I would ever put into the public out there. And then she just slowly stopped doing the marketing, and I never realized it. So constantly be on their case. Constantly check what's going out on your behalf. A weak vendor chain is one of the biggest brand risks in South Africa. Staff training. Guys, I cannot emphasize this strongly enough, how important it is for you to train your staff. It's the most important thing, and it should not be a once-off thing. It should be something that happens constantly, at least 4 times a year. Because people need to be reminded. You get so involved in what you do every day that you forget. And when a crisis happens, nobody knows what to happen. And think of an accident. When you are in an accident, I've been in an accident a couple of years ago, and I'm an insurance broker. I had to phone my office and say, I can't remember what to do. What do I do? And it's just the way it is, because nobody knows how they would, as a person, react in a crisis situation. Therefore, it's very important to have these training sessions on a regular basis. A crisis plan does not respond, but people do. Communication protocols don't talk, people talk. Vendor controls don't enforce themselves, people enforce them. So we get back to the people as human beings, and we make mistakes. And that's why training of your staff is so important. You can't just rely on and think, this person has been for me for 20 years, they should know what to do. But you might not have a crisis in 20 years. When that crisis happens, they need to know what to do next, who to talk to, who to phone first, what is the next line, who's going to speak to the media, who's going to speak to the staff, who's going to speak to whoever out there. Staff training ensures everyone knows their role in a crisis. Everyone understands how their actions is going to affect their brand. If they protect their brand, they protect their work, they protect their job, they protect their livelihood. Mistakes are reduced. Small issues are flagged before it becomes bigger ones. Staff speaks in one voice during incidents. You can't have two people saying different things. They need to know exactly what to say and who to say it to. New employees don't undo years of brand work. So you might employ somebody and you don't train them properly. They can undo 20 years of work. And that's very devastating. The golden line you can use in your business is to identify your brand risks. Sit down and decide what are my risks out there and what can I insure and what I need to put in place to cover myself for the uninsurable risks. Insure what you can insure, strengthen the operations around the rest. There is no single brand insurance for products, but we can insure the parts of the brand that matters the most, and that's me. Any questions?
Wow. Thank you, Marna. Wonderful presentation. And one of the things that came to mind when you were talking, about preparing for for something that might happen, was a movie that we watched recently called The House of Dynamite. I don't know if anyone's watched it, but it's basically about a missile that's fired from somewhere in the ocean towards America, and the movie actually shows different scenarios that are happening from different angles and different people, and it's about what actually takes place and how it actually works out. So it starts with someone in Alaska who's actually now identifies the problem, and then it goes to a center in America somewhere where somebody's now controlling this whole thing, and then it goes through a number of other steps, and then eventually ends up with the president. But what happens is throughout that process, they kind of have a plan of what to do and how to actually react to this missile being fired onto the American soil. And I think that's the same thing that we need to do for our own businesses. And the question is, do we do it or do we just ignore it and hope for the best? So,
I think it's important to identify all the risks in your business and to be prepared as if it is going to happen. Not maybe, as if it's going to happen. If you're prepared, then you can deal with it.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. Let's go around the room and ask. Let's start with Russell. Russell, I'm sure you've got some questions and maybe some thoughts about what Marna has just said.
Yeah, I love the case studies. I grew up when I started working in a corporate environment for a organization that sold tires. And I think I've mentioned before in the discussion, the training we got from Goodyear was really, really good, because Goodyear saw that, wait a minute, we train the salespeople, we have a, let's call it a pom-pom girl, for lack of a better word, that will go and sell it because it's front of mind. But one of the stories they told us, so they designed this tire, we're talking about on the global market, not South Africa, but it was manufactured in South Africa, called the Goodyear NCT. I can't remember what the NCT stands for, but it was a beautiful tire because they had asymmetric tread design, which was something that was quite unique in the tire game. And this tire was really, very good. However, some other idiot rode in really wet weather at high speed to not test the tire, and he had an accident and rode his car off. But he was apparently, I think he was in the legal profession, if I remember right. And he went to the papers and spoke about how bad this tire was. And obviously they had to withdraw the NCT 2-star just because of one person and one person's marketing. They didn't go and attack it. Goodyear was actually quite clever. What they did was they went and changed the angle of the asymmetric pattern slightly, and they called it the NCT 2-star, and they relaunched it. And that tire became one of the top tires in South Africa in the 80s and 90s, I would probably say. So that is very, very, what you were touching on today is a good case study. From my side, there's two things that stands out. It's not a real questions, Marna, but I think there's something that specifically small business people like ourselves, where we because we don't have the budgets of the bigger companies, we do go and look for vendors or service providers at a cheaper price. And actually, when you said weak vendor chains is problematic, that's my interpretation of what you said. It hit home, because I think as small business people, we tend to do that. We tend to go and find something that suits our budget, but not something that actually looks after our brand. So I think that is really key that you put there. And then the second thing is staff training. Once again, from self-reflection, I've worked before working for myself, I was in the corporate environment. And even as middle manager or as senior manager in my different roles, specifically in the sales environment, so it's not, the operation, we were never taught about the risk mitigation. We were never taught about what happens when something happens. Yeah, as sales reps and so on, I would have a car and I would knew that if I had an accident, this was ABC procedure. But that's different. This is about brand, what you're talking about. And I cannot remember ever being in an organization, and I was in big organizations, that actually looked at the brand from that perspective and said, guys, this is how we protect the brand, by how we act, how we speak to public. And I think a new course has come to mind for me in selling about protecting your brand, as not just selling the brand, but protecting the brand. So I love that. And I think staff training is probably vital. One comment I would say, that your staff would probably be your biggest asset before your brand, but it's like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? So I like that type of thought, to think, okay, well, that's not challenging, which is the more important, and you can't choose between the two, because both of them are so intertwined and interlinked. So therefore, the training of the staff is vital to protect the brand. So thank you for that. I really enjoy that.
Absolutely, and I think with the staff training and the understanding, like that if they part and parcel of protecting your brand, it's also their brand, and it protects their jobs, it protects their livelihood. It is so important that they buy into your brand, and there should be a certain kind of a proudness that you need to teach or get your employees to be part of, and that's, if they're part of the process and part of the planning, so much better, because it makes it their own as well.
My very, very first boss was a guy by the name of Peter Altersky, and he, one day over the telephone, we were speaking, so he'd phone every month and say, well done, you've hit your target. To listen, what happened? I see your target was, what do we do to help you? A really dynamic. He probably had the biggest influence in my life as a young business person. And he used to talk about a collective ownership or collective accountability. That, when you don't just, the company was called Mr. Exhaust Tire. He says, you don't work for Mr. Exhaust Tire, you own Mr. Exhaust Tire. So it's collective ownership that you're talking about. Yeah. Thank you, Marna.
Exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Russell. Thanks, Marna. Let's go to Glenn. Glenn, let's hear from your side.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. And thank you, Marna. Really very interesting. So many things came out of this. Once again, so much is involved about relationships with people. Once again, we see that coming out. It's not just about a business, it's relationships at the end of the day that really counts. And reputation of those relationships and the business. What you mentioned as well in terms of understanding the risks involved, I think is extremely important. Asking those questions and making sure you get the right answers. I think one of the major aspects for me is getting a hold of the right people to actually do that cover for you. Interesting enough, I was in the industry many, many years, in fact, 24 years, but I focused mainly on medical aids. And yesterday, I've been out of that industry now since 2017. Yesterday, I got a call from one of my old clients who just phoned me out of the blue, and he said, Glenn, when are you coming back in the industry? And he was complaining like crazy about a corporate company, I won't mention names, a corporate company that just didn't help him at all in terms of his medical aid. And he'd actually left the company and started doing freelance work for them. And he got out of another broker. And again, they weren't giving him detail, nothing to that effect, certainly nothing that what I'd given them. But it just goes to show, if you have the right person teaching you and giving you the correct information, that for me is such an important aspect. Because a lot of people out there will just write a policy for you just for the sake of writing the policy. And
Yes,
I
absolutely.
know that Marna is the right person to speak to when it comes to short term. Okay, so speak to her. Last point from me. I thought of something when I spoke this earlier, and I introduced myself. I spoke about map for life, map for business, map for parent, etc. I've just thought of another one, map for branding. So I'm going to be putting this together. We need to get together and chat about this. I think it's a brilliant opportunity for both of us. So let's go for it. Thank you,
Yes,
Marna.
yes,
Great.
I agree. Again, relationships, everything in business is about relationship, not just a relationship, but a trust relationship. And in my business, my relationship with my client is as important as my relationship with the insurer that I deal with. And we deal with all your large, like the Hollards, the Mutual and Federal, the Santans, and so my relationship with them is as important as the one with my client. So they have to trust me to sell their product the way I'm supposed to sell it, and the client needs to trust me to sell them what they need, and not all whole lot of bunch of things that I don't need or pay premium for that they're never going to use. So that's why it's so important to map out your risks and understand your business before you buy insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. Love the language, by the way. Map it forward.
Cool. Love it. Actually, that's a very nice name, Glenn. You should adapt that. Map it forward. Well, Helen, morning to you. Please, what are your comments?
Yeah, the first thing that came up in my mind, they say that people remember bad news for 21 and a half years. So if something happened, they remember it. And I've tested it several times, talking about certain things, and then people say, yes, I remember that. Unfortunately, good news, they only talk about 6 months about good news, but they love bad news. So your brand or your integrity, the word for me is integrity, is so important. What you say, your yes is your yes, must be your yes, and your no must be your no. Now, Russell talked about the salespeople. Now, salespeople, they are so important, and they make promises, and that's why it's so important to make sure that your salespeople do the right things, or say the right things. And also, the problem with salespeople is that where they get the best commission, they move quickly to that company. And their loyalty is not always there. I know there's certain things that you can put in place and restraints and so on, but the same applies for IT people. I was at the stage, I was in the IT recruitment industry, and I've realized there, IT people can move quickly. It's just a matter of a few bucks more per hour, and they move over to the next company. And these people are well, when I think about cyber hacking and all those things, I mean, they are there, they are in the front end, and it's so important to make sure you have the right people. And I also can relate with this now, in the sense that with what I do, I believe you must have the right people on your team, and to check if that person fit in. There's a few things. Their motive, is their motive right? Are they humble, hungry, and smart people? And to test that, I got certain ways to test that, and to just make sure you get the right person on board. Because as you said, if you get the right people and they know what their expertise are and their work geniuses are, and so on and so on, they know who's the one that need to do the talking, and that the wrong person is not talking to the media or other people, and might, because of their lack of skill, maybe they might say the wrong thing. So it's actually wonderful if you think about, from my perspective, how the right people are crucial for branding. That's your brand. Your people they are the window. Even the delivery guy, that person is the window of your company, and it's so important to make sure that your people know exactly what what they do. So for me, I agree with Russell. People are your most valuable asset even before the brand, because they are the brand, So thank you for that. And my question then as well, Russell actually mentioned that, what about me? I'm a one-man show actually. What about me? And how do I protect myself? The only thing that I can think of is an antivirus program or so. That's all that I can do. But yeah, and of course your integrity. It's so important. What you say, you must do. That's the main thing, and that builds the trust. And trust is the foundation of everything.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
it's the over promise and under deliver kind of thing. With me and my company, we become part of your company. We see ourselves as an extension of your company. In terms of cyber liability, there are specific policies available for the one-man bands like yourself. So yeah, it's not undoable. There are affordable options for the smaller companies. And what that actually does, it gives you that safety net. What if something does happen? Because obviously you have information on your system that is very vulnerable information to your customers. They can do so much with just a name and an ID number. So you have to protect yourself in some way. And with liability, I just want to touch something on price and how much do you insure. I mean, when you talk liability insurance, you can insure up to billions. But how much liability cover do you buy? You buy as much as you can afford. Don't let anybody tell you need 50 million. You buy what you can afford, because there's no use in insuring yourself bankrupt. Look at your risks and you insure only that. And then you add on as you grow as a company.
We need to talk. Thank you, Marna.
I'm available.
Thank you, Wilhelm. Thanks, Marna. So, yeah, while you're talking, Marna, and you were talking about, identifying your risks. I did a course a little while ago, and it was actually the marketing course that I did when I started the Orange Door digital agency. And when I was doing that course, which was basically 1 year, one of the things we had to do was we had to actually write a mitigation type strategy, where we had to say, okay, this is what we plan to do with regard to whatever it was, X, Y, Z. And then once we'd done that, then we had to go along and now rewrite and say, what happens if it doesn't work? What happens if there's a problem with it? And then we had to actually go and re-strategize to actually look at it from the other point of view, not just from the positive point of view of it's going to be developed or whatever it is, but have a look at that the whole thing's going to explode and how we're going to actually deal with that, and what our mitigation would be in order to ensure that we didn't suffer and the client didn't suffer. And I must say that was something that was a real eye-opener for me. And, for a lot of the work that I've done in the past, I have never done that. I've always thought of the positive outcome rather than actually saying, okay, what happens if this doesn't happen? For example, I'm a bid architect, so we've got to submit bids. And the big thing about a bid is that there's a deadline. So you have to actually submit the tender by a certain time period. And if you don't, basically, it's not, all the work you've done falls flat. The question that I have for myself is, what happens if something happens? How do I mitigate that? And I mean, there have been examples in the past where I've known about people who, I'll give you one example. There was one tender that where we went to for the tender submission, for example, and the person arrived, and they normally have to put it into a tender box or something like that. And as he arrived, he took out the tender and the whole thing fell on the floor and all the papers came out of the lever arch file and was like, 1,000-page pickup. And everything was spread over the floor. And basically he was fumbling to try and put it together. And, but there was no plan. There was no mitigation plan for him in order to overcome that. And there are a lot of stories similar to that. For example, traffic. You have a traffic problem. How do you actually mitigate the fact that you have traffic? Suddenly there's something happens on the highway and you can't actually get to the place where you have to actually deposit the tender. What is the mitigation that you can do in order to prevent that, to overcome those type of problems? So those are just, some stuff in my business that I have to look at. But now, in each of our businesses, there are certain things that we have to look at. What happens if your computer fails just before you have to do a submission? What you're going to do? What happens if the internet goes down? What happens if there's load shedding and suddenly you don't have power anymore, or the internet goes down? So these are all things that one has to look at that will eventually affect your brand. So that's the thing that I thought was very important. That's something that came to mind. Identify what the risks are, and then identify the strategy to overcome those risks. And one is obviously taking insurance with you. So
yeah, absolutely. That's one of the part. But you also need to, once you do your list of what you are vulnerable to, then you can decide, okay, these risks are insurable, and then you're going to buy insurance for that. But you also need to identify the risks that are uninsurable. And that's where a broker comes in, where we can look at your risk profile, your complete risk profile, and say, okay, this you can buy insurance for, and how much can you afford, and what we can do about that. But you also need to have a plan in place. If something does happen and I can't insure this specific risk, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to mitigate my risk or my loss? How am I going to do I have a plan in place? Does my staff know what to do and where to go to, what to say, what not to say? So it all starts with the planning. You need to decide and identify the risk that your specific business has in your business, like a manufacturing. Something goes wrong and you and one little part causes a whole car to blow up, kind of thing. What are you going to do about that, and how are you going to minimize the backlash of whatever happened to that product?
Sure. No, thank you, Marna. The time is, so we've run a little bit over time here, so we need to close off. And first of all, I'd like to thank all the listeners for being here and for taking what Marna has said, and hopefully also, taking into account the risks and identifying those risks. And obviously, Marna is available if you need for her to actually, to help you with the identification, as well as to understand what insurance you can actually get to cover the certain risks that you might be experiencing or might have in the future. I'd like to just go around the room and just see what the big takeaways are and what the gems are that you're going to actually apply in your business. Let's start with Russell. Russell? Unmute.
Yeah, there's so many little gems that have come up that made me think about brand from a total different perspective. Because I'm very focused on brand when I do business development, because that's what you're developing and so forth. The business is just part of the elements. The brand is actually the most, like you said, the most important part of that section of that business. I've never looked at brand as protecting it in this way. For me, it's always been about protecting it with your sales aspect and your communication and the way you let the customer feel. But this brings a different spin on it. So I think the whole presentation has been a gem for me, because it just puts me outside of my comfort zone, because I don't know. And you and I have had a meeting before. I don't know insurance, and I went and did a lot of work after meeting with Marna just to go and understand insurance. And this just puts a different spin on brand for me. So yeah, that's definitely my take.
Thank you.
Let's go to Glenn. Glenn?
Once again, thanks, Marna. Really great information. For me, if I had to put one word, maybe one word with a hyphen, it would be risk mitigation. I think that's quite important. But I'm reminded of a quote that Les Brown always mentions, and that is simply this: it's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. All I can say is, people, you need to be prepared. Speak to Marna. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Glenn. Wow, that's a powerful one. Wilhelm?
Well, I think of Murphy's Law, anything can go wrong. That what can go wrong will go wrong. So what can we do that it will not go wrong? So we must put certain things in place. Now, thank you very much, Marna. That was great.
Thank you.
I must do something that something will not get wrong. So that's the thing.
Marna, how do people get hold of you? I see you've got your telephone number there. And
yes, I can get hold of me. I can give you my office number is 012-661-3007. They can also contact me on my cell phone, 074-311-7693. But I would like to leave you with a golden rule in insurance, if I may. Whether you're insured or not, always act as if you are uninsured. It's something very important that I learned in my years in insurance.
Wow, thanks, Marna. That's very powerful. So thank you everyone for being here. Thanks for to the co-host and especially to Marna for presenting. I gave her the subject and she's done a fantastic job of it. Well done, Marna. And we'll be back next week on Thursday. Come and join us for another exciting business acumen series. It's we basically doing this until the end of the year. Next year, we'll be calling ourselves Vision 2026, so look out for that. And we look forward to you all being part of this process going on for next year and the year thereafter. And I hope you all enjoyed it and had got some amazing gems. There will be a newsletter that will be coming out, which will cover some of the major points of what Marna has discussed today. And there's a little video that we'll play now just to remind you of what Marna has said. So please enjoy that. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. See you next week and have a wonderful week. And go and apply some of these gems that Marna has spoken about. Take care. See you next week. Bye.
Good morning, and thank you for joining me on the Vision 2025 Business Acumen Show. I'm Marna Roets, CEO of Inscorp Insurance Brokers, and today we're diving into something most businesses overlook, but absolutely shouldn't: protecting your brand. Let me begin with a simple but sobering truth. One headline can undo 20 years of trust. In 2018, Tiger Brands faced the deadliest listeriosis outbreak in history. 200 lives lost, factories shut down, hundreds of millions in losses. But worse, a national brand's trust was shaken. Your brand is your biggest and most fragile asset. Think about your brand. It's more than your logo. It's your promise, your relationships, and your ability to keep trading tomorrow. Let me ask you this. If your building burned down, insurance could rebuild. But if your reputation burned down, what's your plan? Let's get real. Here are 4 common ways brands take damage in South Africa. Product failures and recalls, like Tiger Brands. One mistake and shelves are emptied. Fast. Ethics and social media storms. Remember Click's advert scandal? A single image sparked national outrage. Cybersecurity and POPIA breaches. Discams saw millions of records compromised. Trust shattered overnight. Leadership and governance missteps. From board decisions to HR policies, what happens at the top reflects your entire brand. The good news: you can insure big pieces of this. You can't insure your reputation, but you can insure the risks that damage it. Here's how. Product liability and recall cover, for what you make or sell. Cyber and data protection, for hacks, leaks, or ransomware. Media and PR liability, if content backfires or goes viral in the wrong way. Directors and officers business assurance, protecting decisions made at the top. It's not about covering everything, it's about covering the brand critical parts. A food producer? Think product recall. A logistics company? Think cyber and fleet risk. A law firm? Think professional indemnity and media cover. Here's where we come in. We translate headlines into risk conversations. We coordinate multiple insurers into a single brand protection strategy. And we help clients build a basic crisis response plan, so they're not figuring it out after the damage is done. Let me leave you with a thought. If we had coffee next year and your company had gone through a brand crisis, what do you wish you had put in place today? Let's not wait until it's too late. Let's map your brand risks together and see what's insurable and what isn't. Thank you. I'm Marna Roets, and I'm here to help you protect your most valuable and fragile asset.